All right, should we go ahead and get started? Okay, great. So appreciate everyone being here, and I'll just say I can't because I'm sharing my screen. I can't see the folks who are in attendance watching, so I'm kind of speaking a little bit just to the screen. But hopefully this is everyone is able to see and hear me. Um, the first thing I wanted to say before we start is there should be buttons for you to join um, breakout rooms with interpreters, so you can choose the right room for your for the language that you need interpretation in. If you need that, you should be able to click a button and join that room. And I'll just pause for a minute to let folks do that. Okay, and I'm kind of looking at the interpreters. Or are we good for the moment? Can we go ahead and get started? Okay, taking that as a yes here. Okay, great. Okay, and if I'm not getting through, folks, or if my screen isn't working or anything, please tell me. But the setup is just a little new to me. But I'm really glad to be here with everybody. Um, my name is Jesse Applegate. I'm the Senior Director of Special Education and Student Support for Portland Public Schools. Uh, and myself and the team are here to present our second parent university session tonight. Um, and that session is what to expect at an IEP meeting supporting your child's educational success. So we're going to talk about the IEP meeting today in detail. And then, of course, we'll be happy to uh, answer any questions that folks have as well. Uh, okay. So just to say, I mentioned this is our second parent university session. The first one was called Understanding Special Education Basics. We did that in December. Those slides are linked here. Um, and this session will be available, as will that session online. We'll make sure to send that out to everyone and get it posted. Um, today as I said, what to expect in an IEP meeting. And then we have not yet set a date and time, but we will have a third session about the different special education programs and services in Portland Public Schools. But today we're focusing on the IEP meeting. Okay, so um, I'm thinking, like, since we're virtual, everyone can just introduce themselves as they present. I think it'll be a little bit complicated to try to say who's who here. But we have our whole team is here, or a lot of our team is here to share with you all about the IEP, the Individual Education Plan, and that in that process and those meetings. So we're excited to go through this with you. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna start by just a little bit of an overview here. So we're gonna talk you. So today is about, as I said, the IEP meeting, but also thinking about what happens before the meeting and after the meeting, during, of course, too. There's also different kinds of IEP meetings, and we'll talk about the different types. And then we'll have some final takeaways, some final things, pieces of information for you. Okay. So first I want to talk about, I've already said IEP like 10 times. I want to make sure I clarify that's IEP. Those three letters stand for Individualized Education Program. Any student who gets special education services has an IEP. So then the meetings to discuss the IEP or create the IEP or make changes are called IEP meetings. And like I said, there's different kinds that we'll share. But the document we call the IEP, and so the meetings about it are the IEP meetings. The IEP is a legal document. It outlines the services and accommodations that your child needs, and it's a legal document. It's required. We create it, the school and the team create it with you, but it is a legal document. It's the services and accommodations that your child is legally required to get from the district, right? So once that document's created, we, the district, have a legal obligation to provide those services to your child. Because it's a legal process, we know that sometimes it can feel overwhelming or confusing. There's a lot of different parts of it, but it really is supposed to be a collaboration between the family and the school to support your child, to check in about how your child's doing and have a plan for them to be successful. So it's really, again, about coming together to support your child, and we think of it as a strategy session. And you, as the parent, who knows your child the best, is our primary partner in making sure that we have a good plan that will work for them.
Jesse, I wonder if we want to pause right there. I'm getting in the chat for us to
Sure.
slow down for a minute.
Oh gosh, okay, yep.
I'm just trying to keep checking the chat too.
Just the general feedback to slow down.
Well, it just said slow down, but maybe we can keep going. I don't know
Okay.
if okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'll try to do a little bit better on the next one here. Okay. So this graphic is an overview of the IEP process. So I'll say a little bit about each piece now, but we're going to go into detail on this. So the first step, it's from left to right here on this graphic. The first step is we schedule the meeting. The meeting needs to be scheduled with your input, meaning it needs to be scheduled at a time that you can attend it. The school team will tell you times that work for them, and you're included in the meeting always, so they will schedule around your schedule as well. As we'll also talk about, you can invite other people to support you to the meeting, if you want, and you can let the school know to make sure that they're included. We have the IEP meeting. And that's really, of course, the heart of what we're going to talk about today. So I won't go into too much detail there, but it's a time for you to share your concerns and questions and for the team to talk about the plan. Then after the meeting, you'll receive a document called the written notice that is a summary of what was discussed at the meeting, what was decided. It documents your concerns. We're going to go through that too. So you know that you were at the meeting, but this is a written record of a summary of it. So it documents what happened. And then, of course, the team creates or updates the IEP based on that conversation. And they will send you that updated document as well. At any point in that process, you will be able to talk to the school team if you have questions or concerns, or there's something there that you didn't expect, or whatever the case may be. There's lots of communication back and forth. But those are the basic steps where we set up the meeting, we hold it, and then we document what happened so that you're completely informed about everything that's happening. And of course, you're involved every step of the way. So that's the IEP process. All right. So I'm turning it over to Sarah. Is that right?
No,
No, not Sarah.
liar to me.
To Blake, to take us through the first part. So thanks, Blake.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Jesse. So I am Blake Castle. I am the director of special education for our secondary schools. And so I'm going to briefly talk through what you can expect before the IEP meeting, and ways to prepare so that you can be an active participant, in the meeting. Next slide.
Okay, I think I'm trying here.
Appreciate it.
Is it not working? Okay, I'm gonna have to. Just 1 sec. Like I'll have to stop and.
Okay, no problem.
I'm sorry. I apologize, everyone. I'm trying to bring this back up. I'm not sure what's happening with this. 1 sec.
Do you want me to try or?
If you want to try it, yeah, it's hard to like be on Zoom and then share at the same time. Like have the Zoom in front of you.
Hello.
Oh, here's one of PPS's finest.
We were hoping for some student participation.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get you some more in a second. Okay, I just got to talk
Yeah, it
for
might
1
be
second.
good for someone else to try. I'm sorry.
All right, you have to close yours, Jesse. And again, everyone, thank you so much for your patience.
Yeah, I apologize, everybody.
The technology is trying to fight with us.
Yeah. Okay. You want to try?
Yep. Mm, all right. Do folks see it moving? Okay. So the first thing that you will receive is called the AWN, or Advanced Written Notice. So this refers to the formal requirement that we send you an invitation to the meeting in writing. Often your child's case manager or your school-based special ed coordinator will reach out to you in advance to make sure that the time works for you, and anyone that you intend to bring to the meeting. And then you will get the advance written notice in the mail that will say sort of like the date, time, location of the meeting. You can choose to have the meeting be virtual or in person. And then it will tell you the purpose of that IEP meeting. We'll go into more detail later on about the kinds of IEP meetings. But it will tell you what the kind of IEP meeting is. And it will also tell you who the school has invited to this meeting, and which members of your student's school-based team will be there. And it will also give you a list, that big fat document with your parental rights. And all of that information about your rights as a family. So schools need to give you at least 7 days advance notice of the meeting, but You can choose to meet sooner than 7 days after the invitation, but you just need to, the special ed coordinator at your school will ask if you waive your right to 7 days notice in the meeting, and that will just then we will document that the whole team agreed to have the meeting without that 7 days of official notice. Some tips for parents, and just some things to know about. The school, as I said, will contact you to find a time. You can ask to have the meeting virtual or in person, and then you'll get that formal invitation, and it will tell you who will be at the meeting. Make sure you take a moment to review that list of the people invited to the meeting, because that's your chance to get to know who to expect to see there. Another good practice is in advance of the meeting, gather your own thoughts and any questions or concerns. You can write yourself notes. You can speak to anybody else you intend to bring with you, and plan for what you want to share at the meeting. And you also are able and allowed to invite anyone you would like to join you as a parent. And you can bring them to the meeting with you. Some examples or things that you might want to share as a parent and some input that you could give at the meeting are some of your students' strengths. So some things that you know your kid best. So what are the things that make them so special? What are things that they like? Maybe some progress and successes that you've seen since the last time that the team met, home-based or school-based. You can also bring concerns. So if you have like concerns that you want to discuss with your child's team, you should bring those. And the team will discuss them and address them. And then also have a thought or do some thinking around where you want to see your child go in the next calendar year. So IEPs run for a calendar year. So think about like where would you like to see your child academically and functionally at the end of that calendar year, and the team can have a rich discussion about how to support your student in getting there.
Okay. Blake, do you want to keep sharing or is that okay? Cool. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Tisha McCarthy. I am the director of our specialized programs here in Portland. So I'm going to talk about during the IEP meeting and some helpful tips for parents. So to start with, who are the IEP team members? What is their role? You as the parent are the most important member. You know your child the best. We would always have a general education teacher, meaning a classroom teacher, at the meeting to talk about what's happening in that setting. We would have the special ed teacher to discuss the IEP and the different supports that are in place for your child. We would have also what's called an LEA representative, which is a fancy name for someone that's designated at the meeting to make decisions. Should there be different resources that we need to allocate, or in the case where there's some disagreement among the team, this person is representing the school. We would also have any related service providers that are on your child's IEP, meaning occupational therapy, speech therapy. They might have a physical therapist, social work, a behavior analyst, or a school psychologist. So the way that we organize the IEP agenda and the way that we go through all the necessary steps, we start with introductions. And then we always say a little bit about, of course, the parent and guardian rights in the special ed process. We make sure that if you need a copy of what's called procedural safeguards, which is a packet that explains your legal rights, we always have that to offer if you needed another copy. The team will go through each member of the school team to talk about the present levels, how your child is doing currently in the school setting. Then we move on to reviewing progress. So we would be talking about, since the last time that we had an IEP meeting, how has your child done in regards to their IEP goals, um, and progress in all the different areas. We would then move on to setting new goals. So we want to talk about if there are goals that need to be modified, if there are goals that perhaps your child has already met. So then we need to have a completely different goal because we're going to work on a different skill. We would then move on to the different services and accommodations that are on the IEP. So we would talk about what's currently on the IEP. Do any of those services need to be increased or perhaps decreased? Sometimes students don't need a service anymore, don't need an accommodation that's been on there. So we would talk about all of that as a team with parent input. And then at the end, we're going to talk about placement. So, if we're at an initial IEP meeting, we're talking about, that initial placement, what type of programming a student needs. But even if a student is already placed in receiving services, this is going to be a part of the conversation so that we can talk about whether we need to change any of those services, which could mean an increase in services again, or a decrease in services. But we're always going to discuss that at an annual IEP meeting. So, some things that we want to know for parents so that you're always aware of things that some things that are possible for you, and then some other things that you can ask for clarification on. So you can always bring a support person with you. You never should feel that you have to come alone to an IEP meeting. It could be a spouse, a partner, a friend. You might have a professional advocate. Um, the other benefit to this is that if you bring someone that could take notes for you, you're better able to focus on the conversation that's happening at the meeting. Always feel free to encourage a student first approach. This is our goal, but if you feel um, that you would like to do this, we always welcome parents bringing pictures of your child, maybe some artwork that they've done. You can always ask the teacher, do you have any work samples? You want to see what your child is doing in school. Always feel free to yourself share a personal story or stories about your child because we want to know them as best we can. But you can always ask the team, any member of the team, to share a story about your child too. So we're going to, at these IEP meetings, be reviewing a ton of information, and we're going to talk about goals and needs. But if you want to just hear, some more anecdotal information, how does it go when they're in this reading group, or how does their occupational therapy sessions go? Feel free to ask any questions at all. At times, not at times, all the time in special ed, we use a lot of what's called jargon, and so as educators, we have these terms that we use all the time, and a lot of them are acronyms. So we say things like the LRE, which stands for the least restrictive environment. So please feel free to stop us at any moment if we are speaking in these jargon terms, or using these acronyms that don't make sense. We want to make things clear. Sometimes we get caught up in the meeting and we forget to explain. So please feel free to always ask questions. We want to hear your voice at all times. We want your concerns. We will always ask you what your concerns are. But if you want to prepare ahead of time, or you want to, have something that you've written down or typed up, we welcome that, so that, you know, you make sure that you ask all the questions that you had coming into the meeting. And we also wanted to point out that it's okay to wait. You don't have to sign the final document the second that, you know, that the IEP meeting ends. If you really want to, you know, you want to take it home, you want to look at it, you want a little bit of time, that's always, always a possibility. And we welcome that. So don't feel like that day, that meeting, everything has to be finalized. And so one of the, or perhaps the most important part of the meeting, the IEP meeting, is that we're building that next IEP, or making changes maybe to the current IEP. So the IEP is the actual roadmap. So that is our written commitment, to what we are going to provide for your child and the services that we all agree on, that they need. So back to those present levels, where are we starting at in this moment? Then we're going to develop goals to look at the next step that we want to make, for your child, and then the services that as a team we need to discuss. What are the services that are going to help us to achieve those goals? So there can be services in, you know, the areas of specially designed instruction, academics, social emotional learning, but then all of the related services like speech and occupational therapy, physical therapy, social work. The next thing that we talk about is, accommodations. So this is anything, any change that we need to make to the environment that is there to help your child. These common ones are extra time, maybe, you know, some extra wait time when you ask a question. It might be as simple as what we call preferential seating. We know that your child needs to sit more at the front of the class, or needs to be closer to the teacher when we have morning circle, needs a quiet space to go to for a break. There's many different accommodations. The visual at the bottom, is a way to kind of see, if you start in that first square on the left. What we're doing at first is we're identifying and assessing a need. We're going to collect some data. And then our next step is we're writing a goal. Where do we want them to get to? What is their next step? And then we provide an IEP service or accommodation. And then we move to collecting more data so that we're monitoring the progress, based on the services and accommodations that we've put in place. And then, yeah, now we're on to, I forget. Oh,
I'm up.
okay. I just see some things in the chat. I just want to make sure we're okay, that they're just chatting. Okay.
Need to give some wait time.
It doesn't look like it. It looks like they were just chatting. I think we're good.
Hello, everyone. I am Sarah Rent. I am the Director of Special Education for our elementary schools. And so Tisha just went through all the meat of the actual meeting, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens after the meeting, and as a parent, you know, what you can look for. Okay, so the most important document you're going to get either in your email or your mail after the actual IEP meeting has happened is called a written notice. And so those are the notes and meeting minutes being taken at the meeting. So likely the special ed coordinator at your child's school is, you know, taking down all the notes of the meeting and formalizing it into what we call a written notice. So you can see on the slide that there are several key parts of what needs to be included in your child's written notice. So we're answering 7 specific questions. So the first box of the written notice always tells you what was determined officially at the IEP meeting. So what will be new on your child's IEP, what kind of services they're going to get, what kind of accommodations they're going to get. So the first box tells you everything that was determined and will be on your child's IEP. And then the second box tells you why those determinations were made. So for every determination, there should be a reason why, and you should be able to read in box 2 the reason for each decision. And then in box 3 is all the data that was shared to help make those decisions. So anytime the teachers were talking, that would be recorded in box 3. And then for box 4, we talk about were there other things discussed at the meeting that the team rejected? But we want to document that. So if there were things considered, then we're going to state that in box 4 and then talk about why the team is not moving in that direction. But we still want those discussion items documented. And then we'll also document, are there other factors that were relevant in this decision? Is the child new to the school? Is there changes going on at home? Are there other factors that the IEP team should be aware of? And then we always, in the last box of the written notice, is anything you as the parent shared during the meeting all gets documented then in the last section of the written notice. So anything you shared as a parent, if you agreed to items that were determined, we would note your agreement. If you disagreed, we would also note that you disagreed. So that's an important document as a parent to review after the meeting. And if you see anything on that document that doesn't make sense to you or doesn't seem accurate, then you need to reach out to the special ed coordinator at your child's school or to any of us as directors, and we will make sure to correct the written notice. So then another key document. So first you'll receive the written notice. That usually comes out a week after the IEP meeting. And then 21 days after the actual IEP meeting, the parent legally needs to get a copy of the full IEP plan. So the actual document that was developed at the IEP meeting. The school team has 21 days to finish writing it and documenting everything that was discussed at the IEP meeting. But the parents should get a copy 21 days after the meeting. And again, if anything on that document does not look right or is not accurate to what the written notice notes had said, then as a parent, you have the right to reach out to the school to make sure we correct it, and so that everyone is in agreement. Yeah, so this is just sort of summarizing the key things as a parent to do after the meeting. So you have time to, as Tisha said, you have time to think about any big decisions. You don't have to approve them right at the meeting. You also, especially if your child is a little older, you might want to share with them a little bit about what happened at the meeting. Talk to them about their strengths, their progress, and you want to involve them in the goals that the team set for them. And sometimes older children, we actually encourage that they come to their IEP meetings. So I think that's an important thing to make sure your child feels comfortable with the plan. And then, as I said before, look carefully at that written notice and make sure everything in there is what you feel you agreed to at the meeting. So yeah, lastly, if you disagree with the IEP or have concerns, you can always, if you have concerns about the written notice, the actual IEP plan, or anything that actually happened at the IEP meeting, you can always reach out for clarification, for paperwork to be revised if it's not accurate. So you can reach out to your special ed coordinator at your child's school. You can also reach out to one of us as directors. As a parent, you always have a right to request another IEP meeting to revisit and make changes. Another avenue is reaching out to the Maine Department of Ed. I mean, we encourage you to work with all of us. We love to help parents problem solve, and we're always, I know, we're always happy as directors to join IEP meetings at the school level. So we hope you use one of us as a resource first. But many parents also, if they feel not heard, they can use the Maine Department of Education has resources for parents. They have facilitators that can help. There's different parent training groups through their training groups and support groups. In Maine, we have Disability Rights of Maine. We also have the Maine Parent Federation. A lot of parents have found support through some of those programs. And then, obviously as a last resort, no one wants to have this level of disagreement. But if there's a complaint as a parent, you feel like you're not being heard, legally, you have the right to file a formal complaint or eventually due process, which is, a legal term if you feel like it can't be resolved outside of seeking legal counsel. And just remember, at any time you can call an IEP meeting, and the team needs to come together and hear your concerns.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ali Kalachi. I am the coordinator for the Breathe programs in Portland, which is one of our specialized programs. And I'm going to talk about a few different types of IEP meetings that will come up. So the very first IEP meeting that your child will have is called an initial IEP meeting. And this happens when your child is first found to be eligible for special ed services. The purpose of this meeting is to go over any evaluations that have taken place and to review all the data that we've collected so far. And then also to develop that very first IEP. So figure out what are our goals, what are our services, and what is the best placement for your child to start their IEP process. Your role during this time is to give us a lot of information on your child, share strengths, share needs that you've noticed, and think about kind of where you want your child to go throughout their time at school. What is your vision for their future? And also to give consent on the services we decide. The next type of meeting that will come up is the annual review IEP meeting. This will happen every year. It can happen more often, but it will definitely happen at least once a year. And the point of this meeting is to review the current IEP that's happening and discuss how your child is doing with their goals and the progress they're making. During this IEP meeting, we will also develop any new goals that we want for the next upcoming year and talk about any services or accommodations we want to add or change on their IEP. Your role during this meeting, I'm going to slow down. I'll pause. So your role during this meeting will be review the progress with the team, discuss current needs that you're seeing with your child, either at home or at school, and suggest any new goals or services you think might help your child meet their goals. The next type of meeting is called a 3-year reevaluation IEP meeting. This will happen at least once every 3 years. So the goal of this meeting is to do any new evaluations that we think are needed and determine if we want to test for any new areas that we think your child might need some help in. We also are going to decide if your child still qualifies for special education or if they've met their goals and they're ready to be discharged from that program. During this meeting, you will share any observations that you're noticing at home or anything that's come up with your child recently. We'll review and talk about all the testing that took place. And then you'll agree or disagree with any new testing that we want to have take place. There are a couple other types of meetings that might come up, not quite as common. One of them is called a program review or amendment meeting. This can happen as needed throughout the school year if we want to make any small changes to the IEP. So we could talk about making a change to a goal. We might want to change the number of minutes a student is receiving a service. But we're just going to make something minor change, not have a big meeting about it. And your role is to discuss with the team the new changes and then agree or disagree. Another type of meeting that might come up is a transition planning meeting. This can happen when your child changes schools or changes programs. The goal of this meeting is to make any changes to the IEP based on what makes sense in this new setting for your student. So either a transition plan to a new school or a transition plan going into a new program. Your role here will be to discuss with the team and agree to the changes or disagree to the changes being proposed. And lastly, as another reminder, which Sarah mentioned as well, but as a parent, you can request an IEP meeting at any time if anything comes up, and the team will come together to review concerns or changes that have taken place with your child.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Gleany. I am the coordinator for some of our specialized programs here in Portland. I work specifically with our functional life skills program, our functional academics program, and our beach program. And so I'm just going to take us through some final takeaways and final thoughts before we wrap up the presentation. I did want to remind everyone that we do have some time for question and answer at the end. So if you have any questions, please feel free to note them in the Q&A box, and we'd be happy to answer your questions with the remaining time this evening. So some final takeaways or, final things to remember as you leave this session. I think the first is this idea of writing down your questions ahead of time. Feel free to come into the IEP meeting with a note on your phone or on a tablet, on a piece of paper, on the back of an envelope, whatever works for you, with some questions or comments or concerns that you have ahead of time. You can also feel free, if there are specific things that you have questions about, to email your child's teacher or the special education coordinator at the school and say, I'd like to make sure that we specifically discuss how my child has been doing in gym class or in art class, or I have concerns about how the work in math class has been modified for my child. Can you make sure that someone is prepared to answer those questions at the meeting? So please do reach out. Let us know what you want to know about, and we can make sure that the team is prepared to answer any questions that you have. I think this can also help families because there's a lot of information that comes in an IEP meeting. And so by writing your questions ahead of time, you can make sure that those things that feel meaningful and important to you get answered. Our next big tip, I would say, is the idea of asking for an agenda. When you come into the meeting, you can ask for a list of what will be discussed or what the topics will be. You can also ask for the agenda prior to the meeting. You can ask to edit the agenda and add any specific comments, questions, or topics that you want to make sure the team covers to the agenda. You can either do that ahead of time, or when you come into the meeting, you can make adjustments to the agenda with the team. We'd also encourage you to think about bringing someone with you, like was mentioned before by my colleagues. You can bring anyone you would like to the meeting with you. You can bring a spouse, a partner, a clergy member, anyone who you feel would be a support for you. You can ask that person to take notes for you. You can ask that person to make sure that any questions that you have are asked. And so that can be a really nice support for families to feel encouraged and supported in the meeting to have another person there with you. Focus on your child's strengths. So sometimes these meetings can be challenging. Sometimes people are talking about the things that children can't do. And so be aware of that and focus the team back on your child's strengths. What are the things that your child can do well? What are the things that your child has learned? What are the skills that your child has gained? And really help the team to make sure that everyone sees all of the great things that have happened with your child and knows the things that your child is good at. That can also include sharing information about what your child likes to do at home, sharing information about things that may be motivating for them or things that they really enjoy at home. Please don't be afraid to ask any questions that you may have. I would also add to this that, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of information at the meeting. You can also, at any point during the meeting, ask for a pause or a break if you need time to process some information. You just want to get up, stretch your legs. You can always ask for a break or a pause. You can ask any questions that you might have about the process during the meeting and even after the meeting if you have questions afterwards. And then I think this last tip, and maybe the most important, is remembering that you know your child best. You are the expert on your child. Your child is the expert on themselves, and you're another expert on your child. And so you know your child best and can share with the team what your child is good at, what your child likes, what your child doesn't like, what are things that that they do well with, what are things that might be more sticky situations or challenges for them. So just remembering that you know your child best and you are the expert on your child and what would be best for them and how we can best support them in school. I see that we've gotten a couple of questions. And I'm going to take us through one last slide and then we'll get started on some questions. So thank you. So if you have any questions, we have a little bit of time now to answer some questions. If you have other questions after this presentation, you can reach out to your child's school teams. You can reach out to their teacher, can reach out to the principal, reach out to the assistant principal or the special education coordinator. All of the folks here on this call from our central special education team, we're available for any questions that you might have. Our email addresses are at the beginning of the presentation, and we can put that slide back up while we're doing the Q&A if you want to write those down or anything like that. And then if you're interested to know a little bit more about what's going on with special education here in Portland, you can obviously reach out to us. But we also linked 2 of the school board committee presentations from earlier this year, and you are welcome to take a look at those and get some more information about what's happening with special education in Portland through those 2 links. So thank you all. So I see our first question here is, could you talk briefly about what happens before an IEP meeting? We have just done an ADHD evaluation with our doctor and teacher, but would like to better understand what comes next. Team, who would like to take that? Do you want me to take it or would someone else like to take that one?
Beth, why don't you go ahead?
Great. So what's going to happen before the IEP meeting is if you've done an evaluation, we would encourage you to share that with the school. But what's going to happen is you can request the meeting and we can have the IEP meeting. Generally, before the IEP meeting happens, we would do a process called RTI and collect some data about what's happening in the school. We would look at different levels of support and then meet as a team to talk through the evaluation that you had done for your child. And the team would look to see if your child meets the criteria based on that evaluation and based on what's happening in the school setting to have an IEP. Blake, I see that you also wanted to add to that. Go for it.
I just wanted to add some vocabulary to look out for in that process. So if your child does not already have an IEP, we would have what's called a step 1 meeting. And that would be with the school-based special education team to talk about what evaluations, what questions the team has about what your child needs to access their education. And then if there are any additional evaluations or data that the team might need to make a decision if your child qualifies for special education. And then you would have what's called a step 2 meeting at after those evaluations were done to review that data and decide if your child qualifies and has an IEP. The next question that I see here is, can you clarify what differentiates a 504 plan from an IEP?
Blake, can I just share actually before you get to that question? I'm sorry. Just one other thought on the evaluations. I did just want to be clear that when an evaluation is conducted by, or evaluations for your child are done by our staff, they will share that evaluation report with you before the meeting. And whoever evaluated, if it's a school psychologist, speech provider, they will be happy to talk with you about it prior to the meeting to explain it to you. So you're not going into the IEP meeting not having seen it or not understanding. So that's just an important piece too. Sorry. Just wanted to make sure that was there.
No, thank you, Jesse. Team, who wants to answer and clarify the difference between a 504 and an IEP? I'm happy to, but also already wants to too.
I can jump in if you would prefer, Blake. So the key difference between a 504 and an IEP is a 504. So for both 504 and IEP, your child needs to have a disability. The key difference is a 504 means that your child really only needs accommodations to be successful at school. So for your child to have an IEP, the team needs to determine that they need special education services. So if they only got accommodations, that would not be enough. So they need specially designed instruction to be able to make progress at school. And I feel like I'm not explaining this well. So Jesse, if you want to jump in, and 504 has a broader categories of diagnoses that can fall under a 504. We still have to make sure there's an impact, like the diagnoses or disability is impacting the child adversely at school. But really the team comes together and comes up with an accommodation plan. So they're going to stay in general education, all day, but they're going to have different accommodations and supports. Where an IEP is a little stricter, we only have 13 disability categories that are served on an IEP. And it really means that your child needs some type of special education service. So they need different kind of instruction, not just accommodations. So IEPs include different instructions, provided by special education and accommodations.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, I'm not seeing any other open questions. We'll pause for another minute or two if there's any other questions folks want to add to the Q&A. As we close out, and we'll share these slides as we close out. I think, is it Blake, if you're on the thing. Oh, I just wanted to put the emails back up on the screen for a sec, if that's easy to do. If not, we're going to circulate this to everyone who is here.
Hey, Jesse, we just got
Oh.
two other questions. One about if was this meeting scheduled for in person before, and are future parent university sessions going to be in person? And another question about if the PowerPoint slides will be available.
Absolutely. So, thanks for that. So, yes, so the previous parent university in December was in person. This was intended to be in person until the late last week when the district made a decision, obviously connected to the current situation with ICE and other things going on, to hold this as virtual. So certainly tentatively would expect to be able to hold the next one in person, but this was purely a last minute shift in response to what's going on. Appreciate that. I think that's a better format when we can do it. So thank you for asking that. And then the PowerPoint slides, yes, will absolutely be available. We should be able to circulate them to folks who are here, and we will also get them posted on the website as well. So absolutely.
There was another comment about a parent wanting to meet other parents. And so I know that that's, part of our design is that we're going to have the parent universities and then hopefully form a future parent group, correct, Jesse?
Yeah, and yes, thank you. And in our last parent university meeting in December, we did talk about this idea of a more formal parent advisory group. Many districts have them. In some states, they're required. I think we've gotten a lot of feedback from parents, and we feel as a team in a district that Portland should have that. So we're in the initial planning stages of that now. Just to say this for the rest of this school year, and our hope and goal is to launch some version of a parent advisory group in the fall. And so you'll definitely be hearing more from us about that. And that's one way to meet up. I'm not saying that's the only way for parents to connect, but from the district perspective, we certainly want to facilitate sort of open and ongoing dialogue between the district and families. So certainly be on the lookout for that.
Jesse, we got one more question. It looks like Blake answered it, typed in an answer, but I think it could also be helpful to answer out loud for the group. Is this the full special education admin organizational chart? Or is this just who presented? And I would assume that the follow-up would be, is there a way to get in touch with other people in special ed admin?
Yes, and I think it's a great question. And so yeah, so as Blake said, these are the presenters. Obviously there's a number of us here. But when it comes to sort of an organizational chart, and we're thinking about also the special education coordinators at each school, there's it's broader than this. So that's something we can certainly make sure is we'll think about the best way to share that information, but certainly information that should be out there and available. I will say that if you have any questions about who to contact regarding special ed, again, our central team here is available, and your building principal or the special ed coordinator at your school will always be able to guide you in the right direction too. So, but in terms of having a sort of more document or something that puts it out there, we'll certainly figure out the best way to share that. Thank you for the comment. Okay, getting a few other questions. Oh, yes. Yes, yeah, Jeff, I totally agree. I think probably the website and then circulating it too, but including at the next parent, you makes a lot of sense. So absolutely. Definitely on the same page. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, awesome. Well, uh, I think with that all said, I don't see any other questions. We really appreciate everyone being here. We know these are really challenging, trying times to say the least, and so we appreciate everyone being here, participating with us. We're here to support, as are the folks at your schools. So thank you for your engagement. Reach out with any questions, and we will make sure that these slides are available to everyone. Thank you very much.